Hello YouTube and welcome to my guide on how to program FOOBAR. Quick clarification on what this guide is. This guide is for any skill level of programmer, so you can be very familiar with object-oriented programming, or you can not know what that word means and that sounds like a bunch of gobbledygook to you. And this is your first introduction to programming in general. This will be going over very beginner level concepts, so if you are more experienced, please bear with me as I explain what a class is, or I explain what a method is. This guide will teach you how to write working practical code in the FOOBAR language. This guide will focus mostly on creating command line applications. So we're not going to be doing a bunch of stuff with graphical user interface, just using the standard library as well. There may be some episodes in the future on how to import external libraries, but those will mostly be like bonuses. And the crux of the guide will basically just be on solving these basic programming problems in the command line. Using this guide, I'm expecting you to have Visual Studio Code and the code command in your system path. There will be a link in the description to a tutorial that explains exactly how to do that if you have not already. So what is FOOBAR? FOOBAR is an object-oriented language that implements some features of functional programming for convenience, specifically array transforms. If you don't know what any of that means, don't worry about it. You'll learn as the guide goes on, but this may be interesting to people who are more experienced with programming. As a matter of fact, FOOBAR actually stands for Functional Object-Oriented Blended and Robust Language. It's sort of a misnomer since even though the word functional is first, FOOBAR is definitely an imperative language at its core. It's definitely object-oriented much more than it is functional. But it is statically typed and has an emphasis on readability with minimal abbreviation and code that attempts to be as self-documenting as possible. This is why I think it's going to be a really attractive choice for beginners, is because it doesn't leave you a lot of rope to hang yourself with, and the code is very readable and very comprehensible for someone who isn't that familiar with programming. It compiles from .foob files, which are basically just the source files for the FOOBAR language, to C via a FOOBAR compiler that is written in Python. So, without further ado, let's get it started. To install FOOBAR, the compiler and a extension for Visual Studio Code can be downloaded from GitHub. They're on a single neat package in the repository. You're basically going to get a zip file. After you unzip that zip file, there are further installation instructions in the README, and you can compile your FOOBAR code using the compile.sh script. I'll show you that in just a second, don't worry. You'll want to make sure that the compiler and the Visual Studio Code extension especially are properly installed. I've tried coding without, or I had to code for a while without that Visual Studio Code extension, before I wrote it. And man, does it suck because there's no autocomplete. There's no, if you're typing out a variable, it's not going to autocomplete for you, and it's just very tedious. So yeah, you'll want to make sure that that's installed. And then there's also an icon setup script that can ensure that Dewey Wilkerson from Malcolm in the Middle is plastered on every .foob file, this wonderful image here. But it's not strictly essential, and it often tends to break a lot, especially on macOS. It might even be broken during these tutorials. It's not essential, so don't worry about it if it doesn't work. And yeah, let me show you how to actually install the FOOBAR programming language onto your machine. All right, to actually get FOOBAR on our machine, we're going to want to make sure that we're at this GitHub repository here, to which I've conveniently left a link in the description. You'll see that there are a bunch of different files here, including a README, which, much like its name, you should actually read. Specifically, there are installation instructions down here, which I'll go through as well. But first, we're going to want to make sure that we actually have these files. So we're going to go to this code tab. We're going to hit download zip. That is going to download a zip. It looks like I've already downloaded it and it's added a little thing, but no matter. I don't actually want this in my downloads folder. I want this in this CS folder. So I'm going to go and I'm going to open a new Finder window. Or actually, this is fine. And I'm going to drag this FOOBAR main.zip into the folder that I want. And then within this folder, I'm going to unzip this, I'm going to unzip the repository here. I can now get rid of this zip archive, and I can just open up the folder here. And as you can see, all the files that are in here are in here. How convenient. So, if we look down at the installation instructions here in the README, we will see, I'm on Mac OS here. There are also instructions for Windows. To run FOOBAR, you basically need a Linux environment. Now, Mac OS and obviously Linux both have Linux environments running, so that's no problem. With Windows, it's a little more complicated. You need this thing called WSL. It runs you through how to get it here. It's not too hard, but yeah, basically, FOOBAR needs to run on a Linux environment. But for Mac OS here, if we don't have some dependencies, then we're going to need to install them. So we'll need to install something called GCC on macOS. Whoops, went all the way up there. We do this by installing these Xcode tools, which includes GCC. On Linux, you just install GCC directly. The reason we do this is that, as I said before, FOOBAR compiles down to C. So we actually need a C compiler to compile to our system's native machine code so that we can make it executable. But you'll want to make sure you have that. You'll also want to make sure that you have Python 3. Mac OS and Linux both come with Python 3 pre-installed. It runs you through what to do if that isn't the case. But we'll move on to step 2 here, which is to make the compile script executable. And that's just going to make our life a little bit easier. So we're going to take this command. We're going to open up our terminal. We are going to navigate to the directory with this executable, which is actually this FOOBAR folder here. So if you see all these files, there's the FOOBAR folder, and then there's this compile.sh script. We could just run this by typing bash and then dragging it, and that works. But this makes our life a little bit easier. So we are going to go cd/cs. However, you need to navigate to the folder. CD to the next sequential directory will get you there. And then we'll go cd FOOBAR main and then cd FOOBAR. There we go. So now we're in the right directory. Now we can run this command. And now this script will be executable. So actually, I'll show you here. If I go and hit ./compile.sh, it's going to run the compiler. Now, obviously, we don't have anything to compile yet, but that's just to show you that it works. So I'll close out of this terminal, window here. Next up, we are going to want to make sure that that VS Code extension is installed. So it's in the README here. Yeah, here we go. VS Code extension. Which adds syntax highlighting, IntelliSense. It's basically a bunch of quality of life features that I said it's very tedious to do without. So to install this, we are going to go and we are going to want to navigate. I kind of escaped there for no reason. But let's go back to my CS folder and let's cd FOOBAR main, cd FOOBAR. And you'll see inside of FOOBAR, there's FOOBAR compiler, but there's also FOOBAR VS Code extension. So let's go to, aha, cd FOOBAR VS Code extension. And now we'll want to run this installation script. So we're going to go bash, and then we can actually just drag this in. And now it's going to run the installer. You'll want to hit yes for these various queries. It says license not found because it's not in the direct folder, but there's obviously a license that comes with the program. But we'll hit yes, and it says installation complete. Very, very nice. So now everything should be set up. I guess with the exception of if you want Dewey's wonderful face on your .foob files. You can also hit bash and then run this icon setup script. I'm not going to bother with that right now. Let's write our first program in FOOBAR. So we'll write a simple little hello world program. We're going to go, FOOBAR main here is, or actually we'll go to the FOOBAR folder. This is where our .foob files will live. So I'm going to open up Visual Studio Code. Oh, that was a little spoiler. Here, we will don't save that. We are going to open, let's go here to FOOBAR. Let's open that folder. Okay. And if you hit Command sign N in Visual Studio Code, that is going to create a new file. And now Command sign K, or you can just click it here to select a language, and we will search FOOBAR. And as you can see, it shows up. So to type hello world in FOOBAR, we're going to do this little thing called main. This is the main method. This is how every single FOOBAR program needs a main method. That's what gets run when you run the executable. It starts with this main method. That's what we call the entry point for the program. So we're going to hit main. We're going to, sorry, I'm kind of rushing here. We're going to give it a set of parentheses, which are the arguments. We'll get more into those later. And then we're also going to give it a set of curly braces here, which I'm going to separate neatly like that. And then we're going to go console dot print. And then in here, we're going to have double quotes. We're going to say hello, comma, world, exclamation points, with a semicolon at the end. And then underneath that, we're going to start a new line, and we're going to say return true. Alternatively, when you're typing this main function, one thing you can do is you can hit main, and then you can just hit tab, and it automatically does most of the work for you, and you just have to write console, or sorry, not continue, console, you can hit tab, dot print tab, and yeah, you can type this pretty fast. But let's take a second to think. Here, we'll save this as hello underscore world. What is this code actually doing? So as I said, this main method, this is what's getting called when you run, the program. It starts with this. And inside of this, it's saying, hey, console, I want you to print this string. And then this return true here, this main method, it always returns a value back to the computer. And if it returns true, that means that the program ran successfully. And if it returns false, it means that it didn't run successfully. It's something called exit codes. If I were to actually change this to false and run it, it wouldn't really look different, at least in the command line. But for larger projects where those exit codes matter, that actually makes a big difference. So let's actually compile this program. We have it written out in this .foob file here. You can see hello world.foob in here. But we want to actually run it in the command line. So what we're going to do, like I said, you can do /compile.sh. Oh, whoops, I'm not in the right directory. So cdcs, cd foobar, nope. Foobar main? No, that's not right. Oh, I see. cd dot. cd dot. I forgot what directory I was in. Here we go. And let's cd foobar. Apologies there. But let's go ahead and we'll do /compile.sh. Yeah, you always want to pay attention to what directory you're in. And it's going to say enter the path to your .foob file. So we could just say hello. In fact, let's actually do that. Let's say hello underscore world.foob. It's going to compile, and it says compilation successful. Alternatively, instead of typing it out, you can also just drag it in, and that will automatically put the path. But we could just put the file name. We just typed it out because we happen to be in the same directory. And it says compilation successful. Do you want to run your program right now? Let's say yes. The screen recording cut out there for a moment. But as you can see, output, hello world. Pretty nice. And actually, if we double click this executable, we also get hello world here, surrounded by a bunch of bull crap, but don't worry about that. It says hello world, which means it works. And we've actually written our first program in FOOBAR, and we've compiled it, and it can run and actually do something. It just says hello world, but it does something, and it's correct code. Just to review as well, this is how you write hello world in FOOBAR. We wrote it together, but I figured I'd recap it. We've got our main method, we're printing hello world, and then we're returning true to show that the program is successful. And to do as practice, I just want you to write a program that prints your name and a line from one of your favorite movies in the command line. So if you can figure out how to do that, you've definitely learned something from this lesson.